John's Gong Show. Well, way before Tony and Tina's wedding. Am I close enough to the mic?
Yeah.
Way before Tony and Tina's wedding, I had an earlier life. In 1967, I produced a prison drama called Fortune in Men's Eyes, written by a man, John Herbert, who had been incarcerated, the first person I met who had done time. And after performances, once a week, we invited the audience to stay and have a dialogue with the actors. And I started meeting men, and I say men advisedly because it was a couple of years before women, for a lot of reasons, came forward. But I started meeting men who had been incarcerated and who had been struggling but making it. And I found out that they had jobs that they lied about their past to get the jobs, and they couldn't sign leases for their apartments. And I asked them I remember one night at the Limelight across the street from the theater in the Village, when does the punishment stop? And they all yelled at me, it's for life, it's forever. And so on one of the Tuesday nights, subsequently I said, through your voices we could educate the public. And I had no notion or vision of what Fortune has become. I just thought at that time that we could give a voice to people and educate the public about the hypocrisy and the inability of the system to give opportunities. So I did not think it would be a career move for me. It was just something I would do on the side. But the need was so great and the organization grew. And one of the things that we did is publish a little scratchy newsletter. We mimeographed it. Anybody remember what a mimeograph is? It's nice to talk to an older crowd. And we could get ink all over you. And it was innocuous, actually. We listed where we would be speaking, and we did profiles on some of the men. But the warden at Attica, in his infinite wisdom, banned it, saying it was revolutionary. The only thing revolutionary about it is that it gave a voice to a population that previously had no voice. And we had spoken at Columbia Law School, and one of the students, Stephen Shostakowski, said, when he learned about this, said, well, let's bring this to court. And he got a law firm to do it pro bono, and we went before Judge Constance Baker Motley, and she ruled that Fortune, and the case was Fortune versus McGinnis. McGinnis was the Commissioner of Correction, that when you lock someone up, you don't have the right to dictate what they can read. And this is still on the books, and it's a federal decision. But the men in Attica suddenly were able to get not only the Fortune News, but books and magazines that they were never able to get. And they thought we were this large, thriving organization, when in fact we were in one room and there were two guys and me with the essence of the Fortune Society. And I started getting very intense correspondence from two men, Roger Champion and Herbert X. Blyden, whose letters were politically sophisticated, and they were educating me about some of the issues that the men were facing there. And in turn, I would write back, and it was almost a doctoral class for me, and an education. And my life went on, but I was becoming informed about all of the issues, not only from men coming out, but from the letter writers from Attica. And then the riot happened on the 9th of September. The men took over the yard, and the reasons were something as simple as, can we have more than one roll of toilet paper a week, as well as educational and literature and job opportunities, all sorts of things. But when they took it over and they held guards hostage, they didn't trust the state that they were negotiating with, and they asked for outside people to come in. And two of the leaders were Roger Champion and Herbert X. Blyden, the men I'd been writing to. And suddenly I get a phone call from Assemblyman Arthur Reeve saying, you're on the list, will you come to Attica? Now, before that, I had been an advocate for the men that I was meeting and about the conditions coming out, but this was a different ball game. And I said this was front page around the world, I may tell you. Literally, it was the lead story on the nightly news because it was very dramatic. Men had taken over an institution. And I said I would come to Attica, but I would ask if two of the guys from Fortune, Kenny Jackson and Mel Rivers. And we were flown by the state to Albany, and we went into the yard on the night of the 10th, I think it was. And when you go in and you saw the guards with the state troopers with the rifles around you, I knew I had left the world of advocacy and entered another world of unimaginable drama that the men that I was meeting with were living every day. And I've often said I left Attica and I've carried it with me for many years, because I sat with men and listened to them talk about their frustrations, their needs, and trying to overcome their past. And then the next day when we were out to hear the guns go in, and know that people that you had just been sitting with were, but here's what happened. The state took over the institution by macing it, and they could have conquered them, taking control of it. But Nelson Rockefeller made a calculated decision to go in with guns after they maced the institution. And I always felt that it was a political decision because he had aspiration to be president, was perceived as an Eastern liberal, not acceptable to the Republican Party, and that's all part of it. And I can't, I was a kid that grew up saluting the flag and with the American dream, and then this was a different kind of America, and not the America I wanted to live in, or not the kind of America I wanted to live in. And so I became committed to what we were doing at the Fortune Society, to giving new opportunities and a voice to a voiceless population. And so Attica, I've carried it with me. Now, there was one man there, a young man named L.D. Barkley. He was 21 years old, and he became a target because he was so eloquent when he spoke, and the cameras were in there that night, those days. There were television cameras, and Barkley's voice was heard around the country. And when they took over the institution, he was on the ground, and they had already taken it over, and they killed him while he was, they just shot him and a man named Sam Melville. They became targets, and you start questioning about the political decisions and the social options and all these things that were being thrown at me. So Fortune became my life, and for 20 years I ran the organization. I moved on from there, went back into the theater, met great people like Joe Corcoran. But then when I retired 100 years ago, I came back to Fortune as a full-time volunteer, and I have worked there. But every September, I joined with the decreasing number of people who were, I think I'm the only Attica observer left, except for Clarence Jones, who was the publisher of the Amsterdam News, and I don't know where he is, and a few of the Attica brothers. And we get together every year, and we try to let people know that there was a struggle that took lives, but also alerted the people around this country that there are people who have committed crimes, who are being punished, but they're coming back into society, and they deserve an opportunity. And it's a fight, and it's a struggle, and Attica stays with me, and that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to share that emotional feeling that I still have about Attica and men like Herbert X. Blyden and Roger Champion, who were heroes to me because I thought with the kind of the letters that they were writing to me, these men could be president. They had such intellectual, political sophistication, and they were in a dump like Attica. And we all say that Attica is all of us because so many of the shortcomings of the penal institution trickle out into society. The failure of the prison system, the fact that men and women go to prison with issues and problems, and they're never given the opportunity to confront it because they have to survive within that unreal atmosphere. So they never deal with why they're there, but they learn how to survive in that alien atmosphere. And we're paying taxes for institutions that fail us, and the people come back often damaged as a result of the system. Places like the Fortune Society are an oasis in the desert and provide hope for many of the people that come out, but around the country, not so much. So we use Attica as an opportunity to remind people that this still exists. The Atticas of the world still exist in this country. There was a man on television the other night on Tuesday talking about prisoners coming in from around the world.
Hide the cats.
But I'm thankful that you've taken the time to come here and let me share what is an emotional experience in my life, and I'm only a voice for people who don't have that opportunity to get here and speak, so thank you for letting me share.